Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday, and welcome to this edition of Balance in Life. I'm Crystal Tyler Mackey, happy to welcome you on behalf of Virginia Cooperative Extension, our Human Development Program team, and our partners in this webinar series, North Carolina Cooperative Extension. It is spring. I don't know if it's like this where you are, but there's pollen everywhere, and that's not the greatest thing for me. What it also means for me is new blossoms and blooms and growth and flowers and just an opportunity to be refreshed. What a better time to start gardening or to revisit and pick up gardening. We know from the research that it really is a great stress reliever. It has all kinds of benefits for us in life. And so today, Bethany and I are so excited to host you and have back our colleague and Human Development Program team co-chair, Sarah Pratt, to talk with us about gardening. And a special treat, Sarah's mom is here with us. Sarah's mom is a nurse and an avid gardener, and we're so excited to hear what they're going to share with us and how they're going to help us get started. I'm in the space of small container gardening in the house, and that's what I can do, but some of you may be at different spaces. So hopefully you'll sit back, take notes, and be ready to ask some questions at the end. Thanks so much. Thanks for being here, Sarah and Susan.
Thank you. We are excited to be here this morning. So we put together some information, and it's a very broad topic. So we also included a lot of resources at the end because there's no way to cover it all in 20 minutes. But let's see, let me get the slideshow going. And there we are.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm so glad to be here and to share what little bit of knowledge I have on gardening. Gardening is such a personal thing. It is as big or as small as you want it. It is just a space that you can create for you, your family, and friends. So I'm a registered nurse by trade and a gardener by heart. I've been gardening off and on most of my life, starting with my grandparents, my mother, and about 50 years ago, a little less maybe, I ordered some little daisies and some gladiolus bulbs through the mail, and they came half dead. I went outside and I dug some holes and I put them in there and I covered them up. There was no bed, there was nothing. It was just plants. So they actually thrived, they bloomed. I was hooked. No way that I could not keep on going and do more. So I've always loved it. And then my mother-in-law got me really started into vegetable gardening. And so it's just been wonderful. Every year I grow just a little bit. And my eventual retirement plan is to do market gardening. So
I'm Sarah, and Susan is my mom, and I have memories of gardening from the time I was little. But as I got older, I kind of got away from it, and just probably over the past, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 years, have started to get back into it. I don't garden on the scale that mom does. So I'm going to hop in sometimes and tell you what the kind of smaller version of these things looks like too, because I'm on a way smaller scale. All right.
So there are so many health benefits to gardening. There are physical benefits and mental benefits. So a lot of studies show that handling and smelling soil releases serotonin, that there are microbes in that soil that when you touch it and when you smell it, you release serotonin. And that's the same thing you release when you eat chocolate. So you can kind of get an idea. When you harvest your produce, when you pick a strawberry or you cut flowers to bring in, you release dopamine, and that's our feel-good chemical. So 30 minutes of gardening a day helps decrease clinical depression. One simple plant on the corner of your desk at work, and that can reduce your anxiety. I need a plant in here today. So, on my desk. Gardening provides moderately intense physical workout, and that helps to reduce the risk of obesity, high blood pressure, heart disease, and stroke.
And the guidelines right now are actually 150 minutes a week of moderate activity. And so that's just a little bit over 20 minutes a day.
And I'll tell you, the thrill of discovering that first in your garden, the first seedling, the first strawberry, the first ripe tomato. Oh my gosh, that is like so exciting. And when you grow something and you eat it, that's even better. It just gives you such a good sense of accomplishment. So it's really important to plan your space, whether you garden inside with houseplants or whether you garden outside with flowers and vegetables. You need to make sure that you have the space. So you're going to decide if you're going to do it indoors or outdoors. Now, as Sarah can tell you, if you start big and you haven't planned where you're going to put everything, it can become overwhelming.
It gets to be really overwhelming. And so when you think about when you're planning your space, it's just not just your physical space, but also your mental space. When you're thinking about what you have going on in your life, I mean, maybe you have 2 acres in your yard, but if you filled all that up with plants or even a large garden, you don't have maybe the mental space for that or the time in your life, then that's not going to work for you. Maybe your mental space and your time is a container on your deck with a cherry tomato plant in it. Maybe that's all you have, and that is fine.
So there's several things to think about. Location, indoors, outdoors. What's the space in your life, as Sarah said? What amount of time can you give to it? Now, the first thing I always have done, I look at convenience. Is the garden going to be close to me? I have houseplants. I have them everywhere. I have them in every room. I also have big outdoor gardens. But for me, convenience, especially for the vegetable garden, is really important. You need to look at your sun. How much sun? What is the light needs for these plants? Indoors, you can have plants that are need sun, don't need sun. But outdoors, most plants, especially vegetables, you're going to need the sun exposure. It could be full sun, partial sun, shade, full shade. Just depends on what you like. So soil, that is really important. You need to have the proper soil in your containers in your ground. That is super important. Water needs of the plant. Most plants need a lot of water, but you'd be surprised. A lot of herbs do not. Mediterranean herbs like rosemary, that kind of stuff. Nutrition, that's goes without saying. If you put something in the ground and you don't provide proper nutrition, it can be natural nutrition that's in the ground, or it can be what you add. You need to look at, I need to go back to water. The needs of the plant and the size of the container. If you have a small container, you're going to have to water more. So the zone, every area has a zone, a growing zone. Mine is mixed. I live in Southwest Virginia. I have, in my yard, I have 2 zones. I have a 6A and a 6B. Those are really important to know what your zone is, especially if you're going to grow perennials, which is trees and bushes and stuff. So, but the most important thing is the first and last frost date, because if you put your plants out too soon, and you may get frost on it. So around here, it's May 15th. I always check to check for what the weather is for the year, because it can change. So I'm going to put my plants out. I don't want to have to cover them. So that is going to be the last frost date. So May 15th. So on May 16th, I put them out. The first frost date is in the fall. And you know that once that comes, you can cover, you can do stuff like that, but you know that most of your plants are going to die. That's just the natural order of things. So that's really important. So when you're looking at your house plants, the same thing goes for them. I have herbs on my countertop that I use all year long to cook with, and it kind of gives me that fresh smell cutting the herbs. I also have plants that need minimal light. I have some that are in sunny windows because they need a lot more light. A lot of plants you can just have fluorescent lights, and that works good, but they all need water, nutrition, and care. And so, like we said, don't get more than you can handle because it can be very overwhelming. Sometimes I get overwhelmed when I walk around and see all the plants that I need to water that I hadn't watered yet.
Oh, definitely.
So,
And when you think about any of these locations, convenience was listed first on that last slide. Mom will come up with an idea and she will haul water and feed it no matter how long she has to go. Me, I'm like, if I can't get a hose to it or it's not convenient, I'm not going to do it. So we're all different that way. But I can tell you right now, when I walk into the store and I go to the plant section and they're all so beautiful and I want to take them all home. And then I get a ton of plants at home. And right now, all of my house plants need to be repotted. And that's kind of causing me a little bit of stress. And so if we're having house plants or plants outside for stress relief and for joy, we don't want to overwhelm ourselves by getting too many of those beautiful plants to bring home.
So I do a lot of container gardening. I have containers for herbs, and I have containers for random tomatoes, random peppers. But if you're going to plant in a container for food, tomatoes, peppers, whatever, cucumbers, all containers must be food grade. Now, there's so many chemicals in if you go out and buy a plastic bucket and it's to mop your floor, that's good for mopping your floor. But if you're going to plant food, you need to make sure that it's safe for your family. They can be made of anything, plastic, wood. As you can see here, I have mineral tubs. I have cattle troughs. I have actually the picture in the middle, the two close together, that is old-timey laundry tubs from about the 50s or 60s. And then the one at the top and the one at the bottom, that is like going back a long way ago when they would, the one on the top is where you would put your laundry and your water. And the one down at the bottom, that is a firebox. And that one on the top would fit in the one on the bottom, and the fire underneath would get the water hot. And so I just use whatever I can find. I was lucky enough that they were in our barn. You can use grow bags. I've never done that because I have so many different kind of containers, but a lot of people love grow bags because they are, you can get them in any size. You put your bag dirt in it and you can move it wherever you want to move it. The roots self prune because they grow through, and it keeps it from getting root bound. Kiddie pools. I've seen a lot of people use kiddie pools. You just have to put lots of holes. Any of these containers have to have holes in it, because if you have water standing and your roots standing in water, they won't do well.
And one thing that I love, as this is a picture of my container gardens. You can see my gardening partner there, but the two on the ends are mineral buckets, and my cousin's a farmer and he has stacks of these mineral buckets because once all the minerals, the livestock have eaten all the minerals out of them, then farmers just kind of have them laying around. So if you know a farmer, they may have mineral buckets that they're willing to give you. And I know we played around with the trough a lot just because it's not as deep, this trough, but there are deeper troughs too. So when you're thinking about your roots.
Right.
All right.
And you can get the the 3 and 5 gallon buckets that are food grade, you can get them from any big box store, or you can, a lot of bakeries give them away. They come with icing or pickles or whatever. So you can, get them there for cheap I'm all for saving money. So, so right now I'm doing mostly raised bed. I love raised beds. As the older I get, the easier it is on my declining body to garden. That first picture shows a keyhole garden that originates in Africa, and it has, I don't know if you can really see it, there's a little tube there that you put compost in, and you can put your compost and your water, and it's supposed to, it all kind of works. I've never seen that it's working too well for me because I probably didn't make it right. But and there's some raised beds and some mineral tubs. Corn didn't do so good. It did okay until the first storm, and it's not as easy to set them up. I use a lot of cattle panels too, as you can see, for trellising. These are in-ground beds that I've done in the past. I love plastic or hardware. Hardware, I don't know where that came from. Anyway, I love the black plastic, the silo tarps, stuff like that, for weed control. You can have it straight, you can have it decorative, you can have it whimsical. I use a lot of cattle panels because I think they're cheaper than a lot of the fancy trellises that you can buy. So I use all kinds of different cattle panels for bean trellises and cucumbers and tomatoes and all that kind of stuff. The thing I love about the raised bed is it's easy to precisely control your soil base. You can decide how much compost goes in, how much soil goes in. But soil is really important. I just started doing compost. That's something new for me. And it's gone okay, but I usually buy compost because your soil, that's what your growth, that's where all the nutrients are coming from. So, and a very important thing about soil is the pH. Is it too acidic? Is it too alkaline? Wonderfully, the extension office, your local extension office will do soil tests for you. Now, some of them you can mail in, some of them you can take in. It just depends on the office nearest you. You can just call them. They give you the little samples. It's pretty good. It's actually pretty good.
Don't
So
do if you don't do tons of research like mom does about your soil needs, and you get that report back and you're like, I do not know what this means. That's where your extension agent comes in to help you out and talk you through it and tell you what you need when you're planting in ground. Luckily, if you're doing containers, when you're buying your soil, you're getting pretty much what you need. You'll still need to feed your plants, but you're getting a good mix of soil when you do that. Right. So we'll talk just for a minute about gardening with your family. And I want to say when I talk about gardening with your family, I mean all kinds of different families. Some families have children. Some families are comprised of adults. Some folks consider their friends their family. And so when I talk about this, I'm referring to all kinds of families, not just those with children. So there are a lot of benefits of gardening with your family. And one of the really big ones is that family connection. When you have a project that you do together, it brings you closer together. And if it's something that you're planning that you can extend into the kitchen, if you're planting vegetables or you have fruits to harvest or herbs, you're just bringing that project into the kitchen, which expands that connection even more. It teaches patience and responsibility. not just for kids, for all of us. It's when you're waiting and you see a bloom on your plant and you see it forming into a tomato, and you have to wait to harvest. I mean, that's a good project with patience. And then if you're planting something that you're going to harvest to eat, whether it's vegetables, herbs, fruit, it gives an opportunity to get your family talking. Get them in the kitchen, get them talking about nutrition, talking about agriculture and food systems, and just getting your family closer to food sources. Also, if you have picky eaters in your household, whether they're children or adults, when you've planted and you've babied something along and you've watched it grow, you're more likely to try it and enjoy it. So that's another benefit of gardening with your family. Some tips, and I put this together and I was like, oh, let me see ways to get children and the tips for having children involved in gardening. And then when I thought about it, these apply to all of us. These are good tips for any age. So one thing is, let the folks who are gardening with you pick out what they want to plant. So everyone gets to pick what they want to plant. A lot of children are going to be more likely to pick really showy plants like tall sunflowers or, something with big blooms on them. Or they also like the things they can just pick and eat right out, in the garden, cherry tomatoes, sugar snap peas, that sort of thing. This is a good opportunity too for textures and smells and, all of those senses. And so planting plants that have like lamb's ear, which doesn't produce a crop or anything, but it has those soft, fuzzy leaves, or herbs like lemon or lemon balm or mint plants, oregano, all of those where they can crush those leaves and get that smell. All of those things are exciting. And when you get to pick what you like, that makes it even more exciting. This is important. We've said this the whole time. Be okay if it's not perfect. If your rows are crooked, or when you walk home and you walk past your raised bed and you see that there's 5 weeds, look at the beautiful plants that are in there and don't focus on, oh gosh, I've really got to get out there and pull those weeds. Tell yourself, look how beautiful those blooms are, or how delicious those peppers are going to be. So again, true for adults as well. A trip to the library is always great. When you have children and they have all these questions about the garden, this gives them a chance to talk to the librarian and ask questions. But as an adult, your your books for adults, those are full of gardening information. So either way. Also, kids get really excited when you can get them their own gloves and their own smaller tools, but I get just as excited when I see a pretty pair of gardening gloves in a bright color and I take them home and put them on to dig in the dirt. And so small, I started off with 1 container right off of my deck with a cherry tomato. Now I haven't grown to acres of plants or anything, but I do have 4. I added a 5th one with strawberries last year, but I do a cherry tomato, a slicing tomato, a zucchini, and a squash. And now I have the strawberries. So I can just kind of walk out and pick things for my kitchen to use immediately. And if you have space, let them dig in the dirt. Let them, hold those earthworms and see the different colors and textures in the soil and ask questions. And then depending on the size of your garden, the size of your family, might be helpful just to set up a care schedule. And my last tip is to make it a part of your daily routine. If you save it all for the weekends, you're going to spend so much time watering and weeding and feeding and all of those things. But if you, during the week, you are doing a little bit each day, it makes it more enjoyable, and it also keeps it from becoming so overwhelming. So really quickly, I see we're almost out of time, but we did put together some resources and references for you guys. And so here's a page with soil testing information. Now I put links for NC State and for Virginia Tech and Virginia Cooperative Extension. But if you are from another state, you can just Google your state's extension and soil testing to find out more information. Most of these references, when you type in gardening, when you start Googling, you're going to see extension is going to come up over and over. So this page is all Virginia Cooperative Extension. There are frost dates and zones. some information about containers and raised beds, lawn and gardening. This first one just takes you to the whole publications page, and you can explore the publications. So here's some additional websites, and they are all extension offices because of the value of that information. And then there are a few other references that you can check out. All right.
So just find joy, have fun, plant a seed because it wants to grow.
I love that. Thank you both for that. I'm feeling inspired. I'm just thinking about what I can do this weekend. So I'm definitely not aiming for anything big, but a small start a seed and grow. So I'm gonna revisit some of the herbs. I appreciate that. And the lift up, like knowing about the serotonin levels, like I didn't know that, like when you connecting in the dirt. And I chuckled because I thought you said also the same that you get from chocolate, like chocolate or soil was the choice. I'm trying to lean in this weekend more toward the soil. And I do think it's something that my kids will enjoy doing together. So Bethany, Herman, what about you? What are you taking away?
I was going to go back to a question that I saw in the chat, and I think, Susan, you did a great job of answering it for the most part, but you talked about especially types of vegetables or things that do well in container gardening. Robin had asked, just do you overall have recommendations for plants that are going to do well for container gardening? So maybe if you could review that again, and especially if there's a certain varieties, like I learned from my master gardeners after 1 year of doing just regular tomatoes, a small space, and they're like climbing the walls and the fence and all crazy. And she's like, okay, there's different types of tomatoes. You can smaller ones. I was like, oh, I'm furiously taking notes. So anything like that we could pick your brain on.
Well, it's so cool because they have some dwarf tomatoes out now, and they're called Tom Hat and Top Hat, that kind of stuff. And they literally, you can even grow them during the winter because they're sun, you can, if you have a grow light. And if you just have a small container, a determinate tomato is the best because that is a determinate amount of growth, a determinate amount of tomatoes. An indeterminate means they will go wild. I've had 12-foot tomatoes before, and if you don't prune them, they just go wild and crazy. And so cucumbers, there's a million different kind of cucumbers. They have bush cucumbers, non-vining, they stay smaller, or you can do like me, stick it in that container and put a trellis behind it and just let it go crazy. Peppers are wonderful for containers, especially if you like hot peppers. I don't do well with bell peppers for some reason. I've never been able to really grow. It takes a little longer season, but I love hot peppers. And so there's just get online, look at some of the seed companies, plant companies. I used to buy everything plants. Now I do everything from seed. I will do a few flowers here and there just to help out our local nursery. But that's fun too. You should try that.
And one thing I want to say, so I was going to put a slide in with all of my garden bloopers just so everybody can see, but I was afraid we would run over. Containers, if you are doing vegetables in a container, feed them, because even if you start off with a nice, healthy, you get all this soil full of all these good things, they need a lot of food, and you'll start seeing they'll grow and get small, not grow anymore, and then they'll start to rot, or they'll be growing beautifully, and all of a sudden you'll see these blossom end rot on it. And if you're not watering regularly, if you let them get too dry, if you don't feed them, you are not going to have success. And I'm saying that from experience.
Thank you. That's a good point, because people don't realize if they're not in the ground, they're just that once you can water them, but you're also watering and rinsing down all the nutrients, and then all of a sudden they have nothing to eat off of. So thank you, Sarah. Susan and Sarah, I appreciate that. I just wanted to maybe spend a little bit more time on specifically what you all recommend. So I'll throw it to Herman to see what his reactions are.
All right, well, that explains why kids like to eat soil. If you take a small child outside, the first thing they do is grab a handful and go right to their mouth. So that explains it. I mean, I've never, always wondered why kids did that, but that, chocolate and soil, that explains it right there. But I did have one quick question because my wife has been struggling trying to keep poinsettias alive that people give us for Christmas. And so she saw a YouTube thing that said, cut it all the way back and let it grow out. Do you have any suggestions for that? Because one grew out, it's kind of growing out with little tiny leaves, but the other one I think has gone on to glory.
Yeah, they're hard to do. My mother-in-law always kept her poinsettias year to year. She was very good at that. Only thing I can say is exactly what you said, is to cut it all the way back and just keep it nurtured. And you can put them outside in the summer. That really helps because they love heat and sun. They grow naturally in places like Florida. I mean, they're huge. They grow big bushes and stuff.
Okay.
But it is a struggle. But tell her don't give up, because once she does it, she is going to be so excited.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all again for being here. I hope that you've all taken some really good notes and have some ideas and strategies of the way forward. And I'm gonna throw this out there. Like Sarah, I would love to have seen the bloopers so I wouldn't feel so intimidated by all the ways that I have epic fails. But if all else fails and you aren't going to do the gardening yourself, at least get out and enjoy some of the beautiful gardens that you can see in neighborhoods and some of the specific places that actually host and have and tend to gardens. Whatever you do, enjoy the nature. It's a great opportunity for stress relief. So I hope that everyone has taken away something from this session. Appreciate Sarah and Susan being here, and Bethany and Herman as always. Take care all, and we'll see you next week. Same time, same place, different topic. Have a great weekend. Bye.
Thank you
Bye.
all.